with 3 quarterbacks off the board and with the surprise of C.J. Stroud being the guy to fall as opposed to being taken number 1 overall, all of a sudden QB-needy teams are interested. And one particular QB-needy team, the Tennessee Titans, decides to put a package together, jump from number 11 all the way to number 6. Detroit is only too happy to trade down at this spot. And the Tennessee Titans draft C.J. Stroud as their quarterback of the future.
All right, so now the Lions are back up at pick 11.
Mm-hmm.
What are the Lions doing after trading down?
So, again, didn't love this spot, but I think there's enough options that they can use it as opposed to trading back again. And same thing, like who are you going to go with trade partner-wise if you do trade back? I think they grab a corner here. I think the value is there. We did our cornerback rankings. I love Joey Porter Jr. as the second best cornerback in this draft. And so, he's obviously talked about as the best press man corner in the league, which sends him to teams like Pittsburgh, to teams like New England. I think he's going to be good playing zone coverage as well. Like, I don't think we're talking about a scheme-specific player here, but I think that upside that he brings as that guy, if he develops as a zone corner, could be amazing. And the Lions have the flexibility now that they don't need him to be amazing right away. Like, they brought in Emmanuel Mosley, who can survive a year on the outside. They brought in plenty of help. I think that's a great gamble to take for Detroit.
So ultimately, going back, even if you love Devin Witherspoon, which you do,
mm-hmm.
right? You're in the war room, you're in the draft room here. It's pick 6. I love Devin Witherspoon. I believe you, right? There's a drop off between Devin Witherspoon and Joey Porter Jr. and some of the other corners, but you're willing to take that risk because you'll get 2 or 3 other picks, right? You'll get 2 or 3 other players later in the draft, which, by the way, I would love to be drafting. Like, I do a lot of Rams mock drafts just to play around with it. They have so many picks. They have like 6 picks in like a 15-pick stretch in the hundreds where there's a bunch of players that I kind of like in that range. This feels like one of those drafts where more picks in the 100 to 200 range, you should be able to find some players maybe and not feel better about them than the higher picks, but the higher picks don't have as much confidence level maybe as they should. So I love the process for the Lions if this works out. Trade down. Now they're at 11. Take Joey Porter Jr., and we'll talk about their corners more because they're going to pick again later in the draft.
Yeah, I really think that this has a huge home run potential. His numbers were good, not great last season, depending on what you looked at. Like his passer rating given up was 63, something like that. But he didn't give up a touchdown all season. And after that first game against Purdue and Charlie Jones, teams basically stopped throwing the ball in his direction, like at all. He had 14 targets against Purdue in week 1, and then 16 for the remainder of the season.
That's
combined.
Crazy, Joey Porter.
And
that's crazy.
In the first game, the Purdue game, 14 targets, he gave up 6 catches for 66 yards and had 5 pass breakups. So 5 of the 14 passes thrown his way, he broke up. And I don't know if that spurred the rest of the college football landscape to go, you know what, let's maybe stop throwing the ball at Joey Porter. But he had one other game where he had more than 2 targets, and in that game he allowed 1 catch for 5 yards and had 2 pass breakups. So he was basically shut down last season. Now, I think immediately he's going to be a good man cover corner, but I think his zone skills are definitely there. And if that part of him develops, like, he could be a real home run hit at corner.
I am intrigued. You don't love Christian Gonzalez, who's still on the board. I think that would be the Steelers fan pick, I think. Might be Christian Gonzalez.
I mean, at this point, yeah. I'm lower on Tyree Wilson and Christian Gonzalez, who are currently on the board and falling. So anybody that is, in line with the convention of thinking those guys are like edge 2, cornerback 2, are going to be, for the next however long they're on the board, they're going to be pounding the table to take them here.
All right, that puts the Lions back up on the board at 18. What'd you do here for the Lions, Sam?
Made them mad. This is where, look, I don't love Christian Gonzalez, but I'm willing to believe that the potential upside of if you can take an athlete that freaky and fluid and teach him how to play corner or get him playing better at corner, the upside is potentially through the roof. And I said a similar thing about Joey Porter at number 11. And I know they've already drafted a first-round corner, but stay with me for a moment and imagine a world where Jeffrey Okudah doesn't get any better because he hasn't really shown that he's going to. Where Emmanuel Mosley is, a guy that the 49ers weren't exactly desperate to keep around and is just your stopgap guy. And now all of a sudden you have a team ascending who is now the favorite to win the NFC North, and your cornerback situation craps out because you didn't do this. The absolute worst case here, well, no, the worst case is they both stink. The worst case that people are sort of concerned about is, oh, look, why would you take 2 corners? That's redundant. What if they both work out and all of a sudden you've got 2 young, talented corners on rookie contracts and everything else doesn't get any better? And now you've averted a potential roadblock to your dominant future franchise by getting 2 guys.
So maybe you screwed up and forgot, but you didn't. Right? You did this on purpose? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me defend you here because doubling up at cornerback hits me solid, right? I love that. I enjoy that. Let me paint a picture for you here. This offseason, the Lions signed Cameron Sutton to a multi-year contract. Then they signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as a slot safety hybrid. That's what he is. 1-year deal. Emmanuel Mosley, 1 year, $6 million contract. One of my axioms, Sam, is you are not drafting for just 1 year.
Correct.
Right? We are not drafting to fill the 2023 depth chart. And thankfully, we don't need to. We already did it. So now I flip my depth chart forward to 2024. And here's what my cornerback room looks like. Cameron Sutton. That's it.
The end?
That's it. Cameron Sutton, Chase Lucas. That's it. That's all they have on the 2024 depth chart for the Detroit Lions.
That's not great.
Right? So now, picture Cam Sutton, and then year 2, Christian Gonzalez, and year 2, Joey Porter Jr. Now that's your cornerback room. Then you sprinkle in, your backups and your 1-year flyers and all that stuff. So this would be a long-term play for the Lions.
Yep.
And then, oh, by the way, in the short term, don't we think Joey Porter Jr. or Christian Gonzalez is competing with Emmanuel Mosley, is maybe just taking Jeffrey Okudah's job right now? Are one of them potentially better than Jeffrey Okudah, who has underachieved in his 3 years in the NFL? So I will defend you to the death, Sam.
Great.
That taking 2 of the top corners, if you're the Lions, is not redundant. You cannot be redundant at cornerback. You cannot be. Tactically, you need 3 or 4 to cover in a game. Strategically, you need 3, 4, or 5 to handle injuries and to mitigate risk, the fact that they might not be that good. If the Lions doubled up at corner and they got not only Joey Porter Jr., but also Christian Gonzalez, David Blau's brother-in-law, with the team connection there, yes. I think that would be a massive, non-redundant win for the Lions.
I mean, the thing is, even if Okudah takes a massive step forward and finally justifies his draft status next year, he's a free agent. So you got to either...
You're letting him walk. Yeah, Okudah's, in this scenario, I'm letting him walk. I don't think anybody's going to trade for him.
Well, you either let him walk or you have to pay him a giant amount of money coming off a contract year where he finally looked like the shutdown corner he was supposed to be. So either way, you would be smart to build in that level of contingency. And even if that happens, you still have at least one spot where you would quite like an upgrade at corner, right? Because you're not... Emmanuel Mosley's great in terms of you don't have to chase value, right? I don't have to go... I have to take a corner at 6 because if I don't, I'm screwed. You don't. You can start Emmanuel Mosley. Things will not be catastrophic. But if value matches, and I think it does in these situations, then you'd be smart to have an Emmanuel Mosley upgrade or replacement or alternative.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've said my piece. I think it makes sense if you go back to the way the Lions have built their team, right? In the trenches for a couple of years. They finally started to make some moves at receiver last year. They hit on an Amon-Ra St. Brown, which was outstanding.
Yep.
And now we said for a while, you need to do a lot of work in the secondary. I love that they did short-term work in the secondary so they don't have to force cornerback picks. At the same time, the way this draft falls, if this is the cornerbacks that were available, plus they picked up extra picks, the way they traded down, I think this is a home run for the Lions. I love your Lions mock draft. I think maybe more than anyone else. So I'm defending you, Sam.
Sweet. Like it.